So you've managed to come up with what you think is probably the best product or service known to man. And what's the next step? Some publicity. What's the best way to get some publicity? Some interviews, along with some marketing. But let's start with the interviews. I'm Ryan Broome, and I've been doing this, media and communications, for just about 30 years. And I'm going to help you with some tips, some important tips, basic tips, how to prepare for an interview to make your product better. You need to know about your product so that if anybody, the reporter or whoever, asks you any question about your product, you need to know every detail. How it was made, where you source it from, how much does it cost, what colors do they come in, if it's a service, how often do you offer this service, do you offer the service on bank holidays? So you need to basically know everything about your product as much as possible so that you can answer every potential question. You have to make sure that any interview that you're going to do, whether it's a live interview or recorded interview, that you are well prepared. What does well prepared mean? Well, that means that, say, if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Or you could do that vice versa. And it's true with interviews. Another part of the preparation process is to learn to relax. It might sound easy to say learn to relax, but think of it this way, and I always tell people this. I've been doing this, as I said, media for about 30 years, and I could talk about media for the whole day long because it's my passion, it's what I do. Now, your product or service should be your passion. At least you should know a lot about that and be able to talk about it all day long and tell somebody why they should buy this thing from you. So the important thing to make sure before you worry about microphones and cameras and all that is to be able to have a conversation with somebody, to tell them, this is why I think you should buy my product or service. And when you do that, when you turn it into a conversation, you forget about all of the lights and camera and action and microphone. It doesn't matter if it's live, doesn't matter if it's recorded. When you're coming from a genuine place, it makes it easier and it makes you more comfortable. If you can, request a location where you will feel most comfortable. For some people, that's different places. I remember one interview I did, somebody wanted to do it in a car park near their home because they weren't comfortable with their home setting. So not everybody is as flexible in terms of the interviewer in agreeing to that, but there's nothing wrong with asking the question to make yourself comfortable. Another important factor with interviews, be yourself. Don't try to put on an accent. Don't try to put on an American accent, British accent, no accent. Speak in your natural speaking voice. Try to speak well, but don't try to put on. I've had situations before where people tried so hard to speak so perfectly and put everything in the right way, and it made them nervous. It made them too nervous. They forgot about what they were doing. So it's important that, yes, speak proper English. Try your best not to speak broken English, but at the same time, still try not to overdo. Don't try to put on a performance. The more you stick to your natural tone and your natural way of speaking, the more comfortable you will be, the less you will be worried about making mistakes and about being nervous. And speaking of making mistakes, and this is something we'll get back to, making mistakes is fine. For live TV, it's a little bit more tricky, but when it's being recorded, well, that's a different story. Be confident. One way of helping your confidence is to find out ahead of time what the interviewer wants to ask you. So there's nothing wrong with asking the interviewer to let you know what questions they intend to ask you so that you can be better prepared to answer those questions when the time comes. Okay, now let's get into some specifics about the particular types of media and what you need to do. For television, it's visual. So most important thing is you need to look good. Looking good means that you don't wear colors that are too loud. You make sure that if you're a female that your makeup is not too excessive. Keep it sober, but just make sure that you look presentable. How you would look if you were, let's say, going to court or going to church. You want to at least look presentable to everybody that sees you. Now, let's start with TV. TV live and TV recorded are two completely different things. And I say this as somebody who's been a news anchor and knows that TV live can be extremely stressful because you don't always have control over what's happening. Now, let's deal with the live TV interview. For a live TV interview, it's usually a little more tricky in terms of the preparation, but you can still get it done. How do you do that? Notes. I always tell people this. Some people try to remember every single thing that they want to say on camera. And then when that happens, when they get in front of the camera during the live interview, it goes haywire. They're not able to remember certain things. And there's an easy solution for that. What you do is you have some notes. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having your notes in front of you, whether it's on a tablet, as I do right now, or on a piece of paper. That helps you to be able to remember, and nobody is going to get angry at you for looking down briefly to look back up at the camera, just so that you could collect your thoughts and remember, or you could keep the things in point form on the paper or on the tablet so that you can remember. Nothing wrong at all with checking your notes, especially for live, because in live, there are no do-overs. So you want to make sure that you have your thoughts clearly, whether you want to list them 1, 2, 3, 4, however you want to do it, and you plan that with the person who's interviewing you so that when they ask you, number one, okay, this is the response to number one, this is the response to number two, and so on. So for live, you want to make sure that your preparation is on point because there are no opportunities for do-overs. Also for lives, try to cut down on the fidgeting. If you're sitting, I've seen this before, there's some people who when they're in a swivel chair will want to swing right, swing left. It can be distracting to the viewer. Try to just settle your nerves. Try to sit still for as long as possible. Most of these interviews shouldn't take too long, maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes at most. So just settle yourself, settle your nerves, and stop rocking and swinging that chair. Social media. Now, this is your thing. You are all young people. You are always using social media. I imagine TikTok, IG, all the rest of it. So I would like to think that this is something that you should be actually doing better than I can. So social media interviews are similar to a live radio or a live TV because it's a mixture. Obviously, you have a recording that's live if it's going live, or if it's live streaming. So again, the elements here are that you would need are similar to a live TV interview more so than the live radio interview because more than likely you will be on camera. So let those same elements that you would apply to the live TV interview apply for this, in that you have that preparation, watch your facial expressions, get your questions and your answers in sync with your interviewer, and make sure that when it comes to, as I said before, knowing your product is important. And especially if you're doing a live stream, you want to make sure that you have everything on point. You have your products or your services, your products, sorry, visible in the shot as much as possible. And that's true also for live TV. I should warn you that you may encounter from time to time people who are not very good interviewers. And in those situations, I want you to rise to the occasion. Whether they're a good interviewer or not, make sure that the information you give, even if their questions are not the greatest, that the information you give at the end of the day gives every important detail about your product that you need the public to know. Because whether they're a good interviewer or not, the most important thing is that you would not have wasted your time and you still get the information about your product or service out there, whether that interviewer's competence is good or not. Now, the recorded interviews, the recorded TV interviews are a little easier. And they're kind of like what you see on the movies. Take 1, take 2, take 3. When I started this, I used to have a lot of takes, trust me. So for the recorded interview, you can make mistakes. But don't get comfortable with that because you don't want to be staying at an interview place for hours on end or for an hour even or more, because time is money. Time is your money. This is your business. So make sure that you're still prepared for the recorded TV interview. It's not as much pressure, it is true, but still treat it as though it was live. If you treat a recorded TV interview as if it was a live TV interview, you will get through that interview quickly and you will get your message across quickly as well and efficiently. Trust me, that will help. Radio, live radio, recorded radio. Let's start with live radio. Live radio, unlike TV, is actually, before we get to that, one more thing with live TV and even recorded TV, your facial expressions. Now, for some people, as they say, if somebody tells them something, you will know it based on their response by their facial expression. You have to be very careful with this, especially if your expression is, as Bajans like to say, your face bent up or twist up. Try to avoid that as much as possible. Try to keep your as possible in terms of emotional. If it's excitement, excitement is fine. But if you're gonna twist up your face, as we say, try to avoid that as much as possible. Now, live radio is not as challenging as live TV because you can get away with a few more things because people can't see you, they can't see your face and your facial expressions. So for live radio, have that same preparation similar to live TV, where you have your thoughts, your notes already identified, and line these up with your interviewer if you can. Like I said, number one question, number one response. Number two question, number two response. So just make sure that you prepare to have your questions and your answers in sync before the live radio interview. Recorded interviews for radio would be obviously even easier than live radio interviews because if you make a mistake, the editor can go through and kind of clean it up for you. Treat your recorded radio interview as if you would a live interview. And I say this all the time. If you do this, your interviews generally will go well and will go quickly and efficiently. And you don't, like I said, you don't want to waste time because time is money. Now, the print interviews are a mashup of the radio and TV interviews in that it's not a lot of pressure because you're more likely be in a more relaxed setting where you don't have lights or cameras sometimes because print they also do some photographing and some print outlets now also do I should remember and should say that some of them do online versions, so you might still have to do some video to some degree, but the print interview is a little more relaxed and the preparation is similar. Still, if you can, get those questions that the reporter or interviewer intends to ask you. Helps your preparation process, helps you to answer the questions more easily. And that's the most important thing when it comes to the print interview. Now to your assignment. I want each of you to interview each other. And for the purposes of these interviews, we're going to leave print one side because that's the easiest one, the easiest media element to conquer. The most important thing that I want you to look for when you're conducting an interview is to find out if that person actually knows about their product or service. And I mean, grill them. Make sure that they can give you every last detail, right down to the temperature that they take to cook whatever pastry or whatever dish it is that they do for their business. I want you to grill them. Make sure that they know everything. So as another part of the challenge, remember I told you that sometimes you will encounter interviewers who are not that good at what they do. So my second challenge to you is one of you, when you're doing your interviews, be that almost incompetent interviewer, so that the challenge of the other person is to overcome that, whether that person is an incompetent interviewer or not. The person who is being asked the questions, I want you to rise to the occasion and make sure that your information, regardless of how incompetent that interviewer was, that your information is still correctly and accurately and efficiently put out there for the public to get. Now, once you've completed those interviews, switch roles. And the people who were doing the interviews now become the interviewees. Your ambassadors will ultimately assess who wins this particular challenge. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The basics of interviewing, whether it be for TV, radio, or online. Remember, the purpose of an interview ultimately is to ensure that you are able to convey to the other person the information about your product or your service. Once you have successfully done that, you have had a successful interview. So don't be nervous. I know you all got this. The $20 challenge is on. Thanks so much for your time. Again, all the best to all of you in the $20 challenge. I'm Ryan Broome.